It's hard to turn on the TV or open social media without seeing conflicting messages. We've got weight loss drugs and images of the ideal body all around us, while also being surrounded by super accessible, highly palatable food everywhere we go. Every major supermarket, sporting event, fuel station, airport. I can't walk my dog through the park without being hit by at least one Snickers bar. So what are we meant to do? My good friend Kathryn Hansen, author of Brain Over Binge, is here to unpack this with us today and talk about the challenges that we're facing in our modern food environment. What are we meant to do and how are we meant to feel in the face of all these mixed messages? Do we try to just do the food freedom thing and fill our house with all these challenging, hyper delicious foods and hope that one day we get sick of them and maybe stop eating them? Or do we try to rid our house and rid our environment of difficult foods and hope for the best? So thanks for joining us today. I hope you find this conversation really helpful. My name's Marcus. This is Strong Not Starving. And if you would like to reach out to either Kathryn or myself, you can find our details in the episode description. I wanted to ask you today about your thoughts with our modern food environment in 2026. The Super Bowl has just come and gone. Everyone was talking about the ads. You've got Mike Tyson declaring war on processed food and all that kind of stuff. And then you've got an ad directly following that for some kind of sugary confectionery thing. And then you've got an ad for a GLP-1 basically saying, don't be fat. And then you've got something else, another food ad. Oh my God.
I know. It's so much.
Like,
It's so much.
how do you feel personally about all this?
It's almost like we're both speechless. What do you even say? Where do you even start? There's there's so many things. And I mean, I guess I would start by just acknowledging that, yeah, we're in a really challenging world as far as marketing, as far as diet culture, and just for everyone to just take a breath and realize if you're confused by it, it's nothing wrong with you. It's what's going on out in the world that's affecting you in ways that maybe your biology wasn't meant to handle. So it's okay if you have some concerns right now.
That is such a wonderful message. If you're confused right now, if you're finding this hard, that's not weird
Mhm.
because, yeah, this is a really odd situation. We're facing some really difficult things in terms of our food environment and body image and conflicting messages. We had the war on terror and the war on drugs. Now it's we've got the war on Pop-Tarts. And
Yeah.
simultaneously, we've got people saying you should accept yourself no matter how you look. And meanwhile, we've got people who we've always admired and kind of looked up to selling GLP-1s. Then we've got
Yeah.
other people saying processed foods are going to kill us all. And then other people saying we've invented the most delicious gummies you've ever had in your life. You should buy them.
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
I don't what.
I know. We're being pulled in many different directions. And maybe even stepping back and realizing that, and not to make these companies out to be terrible, but they're profit motivated, right?
Mm,
People are trying to sell you something around every corner with these commercials. So it's taking it with a little bit of that knowledge, hey, this is trying to sell me something and this is trying to sell me something else. And yeah, that's why it conflicts because they're selling two different things, if that's,
yeah,
making sense.
it makes all the sense in the world. We've got private companies setting out to make money, and I don't want to go on some capitalism is evil rant or whatever
Mhm.
because I'm not that guy. But what we're looking at here is private individuals and private companies recognizing something that there's a market for and just going out there and trying to sell that and trying to push that, not really caring what else is being sold or what else is going on because is it their job to care? Maybe in the most idealistic world possible, yeah, we would all care about that stuff. But, someone wakes up one morning as a teenager and goes, you know what? I'm really interested in fun food, like, I
Mhm.
wonder, like, they might have I'm going down a massive rabbit hole here, so forgive me, like, they might have one day seen one of their friends when their friend was having a really bad day and given them a hug and a Mars bar and been like, "Hey, it's gonna be okay," and that was a good experience for them, and now they're like, "Oh, I wanna be a food scientist. I wanna make delicious things."
Mhm.
And that's a leap, I know, but
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm not that person either to be like, "Oh, all food companies are evil," or and also, we can be honest here that both of us are helping people with this overcome these things and navigate these things, and we're charging people as well, right?
yeah.
So, like, a little honesty there is like, yeah, we're helping people navigate it. So, we're another voice in this space of like, you can learn to be in this world. You can learn to have a healthy relationship with food. So, we're out here teaching that, which is another conflicting message, I guess, right? We'd like to hope we're providing a voice of reason, but we are just kind of another voice in this space.
Yeah, and that's really important to factor in and mention as well. Like, yeah, you and I are like, we're not employed by the medical system or the government or anything like that. We are private individuals with businesses selling a service, like you said. Hopefully, we're doing a good job of providing a valuable service that improves people's lives. I would like to
Mhm.
think that I am,
Yeah.
but yeah, it's just
And
it's
same with the
another.
guy who created the best tasting gummies might think he's providing a valuable service, right? Like,
Well, like,
yeah,
who's to say he's not? Like,
right?
it's
I know.
yeah. I'm sure some people will have stuff to say about that and go, no, no, capitalism. And once someone becomes a massive company and they have so much market share, then it becomes like, and it's like, oh, okay. But I think in light of that kind of perspective, I want to acknowledge, like, yeah, yeah, okay, there is such a thing as corporate greed, but how much does it improve your day or improve your personal outcomes with the decisions that you want to make? Walking around being really mad about that. I don't know about you, but when I get angry about stuff, I get exhausted really, really quickly.
Yeah.
And so I do my best just to go, okay, some stuff isn't fair. Some stuff isn't, quote, right. The scales aren't evenly balanced. I don't want to waste my energy getting mad about that. So what can I do with what's right in front of me right now? Like what's the choice that I can make right now? How can I help? What can I do? How can I support myself? How can I make someone else's day a little bit better? I just find that to be a better place to direct my energy than jumping on some kind of crusade trying to make it sound like, you know, big sugar or what like
Mhm.
or big GLP-1, big pharma, what it like
Yeah.
I okay. Yeah, like,
I
yeah.
know. I know. Yeah. We're very similar in that way. And I hope that's the perspective we can bring to everyone listening to this, in that it kind of is what it is right now. And of course, that's not to discourage you from championing causes. That's not the right word.
That's okay.
Like that causes that
Championing?
you championing. I have no
Champion
idea.
championing?
From like promoting or supporting causes that you believe in. If there's something you feel like you can do to make change,
Of
great,
course.
do it, right? But otherwise, if you're out there, all of us are kind of just trying to live our lives and get by, and we hope to bring a perspective that just helps you have a little more peace around it, to stop getting so upset by all of it and to start thinking, okay, the world is what it is, the food environment is what it is right now. I can do what I can do, and once I realize that maybe I've done all I can, it's time for me to focus on solutions for myself and my family and, those around me that I care about. And how am I going to navigate this in the way that brings me more ease and more peace?
For sure. Personally, how do you navigate the food environment? Like, what do you do now? And I'm wondering if there's a difference between you now and maybe you kind of directly post recovery. Because I know for
Yeah.
sure for me, there was while I was dealing with binge eating and how, like, what that looked like, which was, carnage. And then the years immediately after that, like my first few years of being in a better place, yeah, it was a big improvement, but I definitely didn't have the same skill set and perspectives and degree of assurance and peace and habits that I have now. So I'm
Mhm.
wondering how you navigate our food environment on a practical level now and whether or not that has changed over the last 5 to 10 years.
Yeah, I mean, that's a really good question for sure. It makes me kind of reflect on my own journey. I'll start with something that I heard in relation to alcohol, and I hope I can explain this well. It was just some sort of like internet video that said that people who never reach the point of really having a problem with alcohol that they have to like wake up and quit, like maybe can get into this low level problem with it that never encourages them to really make a shift. So it can kind of linger and create a problem through their whole life. And I feel like it's kind of the same with food is that some people who are in this environment and never tip into the problems that we experienced can maybe have this low level issue with food their whole life and it can create problems and but never really have a disorder and never really enough to make them wake up to change.
Yeah.
So I almost feel grateful in a way that I had a problem with it that really made me wake up and made me shift things and really change the way I viewed the food environment and try to separate myself from that noise and develop a healthy relationship with food because I think doing that has protected me from a lot of the noise that's out there, and I can kind of watch the commercials and just be like, "Okay, whatever, that doesn't apply to me." And I think a lot of that is because I had such a problem with food. I did the work, I did the recovery, and the same way of people who have a big problem with alcohol can wake up and stop drinking, and then it's not a problem for them anymore, whereas people who just kinda drink and it may be a problem their whole life. So
Mm.
does that make sense?
It does. I'm thinking of my relationship with food and my relationship with alcohol because, yeah, my relationship with food did really hit a tipping point where I'm like, oh, good God, like I have to do something about this. This is really miserable. But my relationship with alcohol was a lot more insidious. Like
Mhm.
I was I was leaning on alcohol really, really heavily, like post recovery, like post like eating disorder recovery, because of my kind of history in the music industry, heavy drinking and being like a functional heavy
Mhm.
drinker was kind of glorified a little bit. And I, in a very toxic way, felt even more proud of myself that I was able to do that and was still going to the gym and doing all this kind of thing just
Mhm.
through stubbornness more than anything else. I was not thriving. I was not a happy version of myself. My sleep quality was bad. I had aches and pains everywhere all the time. It was difficult to get through an evening without having at least one or two drinks, but it's just kind of normalized a lot
Yeah.
in the circles that I was in. And so stepping away from alcohol or drastically reducing alcohol, that came down to, I think at the start of last year, my wife said, I don't feel good when I drink anymore. It's just not worth it. I get like a buzz for maybe 20 or 30 minutes and then I just kind of feel like, like,
Mhm.
anxious or just depressed. So she's like, I don't want to. I'm going to step aside. That was a little bit of inspiration for me to go, oh, why not? I'll support her with this. I'll join her with this. But with food, yeah, there was definitely a much bigger problem that was
Mhm.
having a much more conspicuous effect on my life and my emotions and my choices. So I think in some ways, those of us who are fortunate enough, I don't
Mhm.
like,
I know, right? It seems like the
like,
wrong word to use.
yeah, like fortunate enough to have a very clear line, a very clear decision to make, like, just like, this is just not working. I need to change
Mhm.
versus that problematic but still functional relationship with food that just chips away at you over time.
Yeah. Yeah, and people can go on diets throughout their life, right? And it never works, right? They can be up, down, like constantly stressing, constantly having, all this food noise, all these thoughts about food. And Yeah, and so that's kinda where I wanted to start, and then I do feel, like you said, fortunate seems like the wrong word, but I feel lucky that I did go through that and came out the other side so that I do feel like truly it does not bother me anymore. I mean, it bothers me just because I think it's harmful, and I'm like, "Ugh," like, yes, it's better for my own peace to not get upset about it. However, it's knowing what I know about how it affects people. Yeah, it's upsetting. But as far as my own personal journey and like, does it affect my daily eating choices? I mean, I probably would be wrong if I said not at all, right? I do fall into some of the health messaging of like, oh, you need more protein, right? That's like everyone right now is like, how much protein do we really need?
More.
So, you know,
How much
some
more? Always more.
I I saw a joke, it was like, "How do you calculate how much protein you need? First, decide how much it would take to kill you, then subtract 10 grams or something." I mean,
Accurate.
nobody knows, I don't know. But I do fall into that. Sometimes I hope with a well-intentioned mindset of just wanting to take care of my body, especially, like, you know, getting older, like, wanting to do better in that way, but I do feel like I approach it with a healthy mindset. Back when I first started recovering, something that came to mind is that I really had done a lot of work to put aside diets, to realize I needed to nourish my body, and not too long after recovery, I feel like the whole paleo diet came out, and that was, like, the first time that I mean, this is a long time ago. That was the first diet I remember really hearing about after my recovery, and I do feel like it affected me. I feel like it didn't make me do anything harmful, but I was like, "Oh, like, should I be doing that for health? Is there a way I can do that without messing up my recovery?" I remember my husband at the time really got into it, and so I did end up eating more that way just because that was a natural order of things, but it didn't really make me feel great, and I really felt like I needed more carbs. I guess all that is to say that I did have some more noise around it earlier on after recovery. Now, when I hear about certain diets and things like that, it really doesn't even register at all. I don't every now and then, like I said, with health, I'll think, "Oh, should I shift anything to try to make myself feel better?" But it's never like, "Oh, I need to try this diet or whatever." So yeah, it's definitely been an evolution over time, but back when I was in the eating disorder, like any thought, any talk about dieting, any message out there in the world would really hijack my attention and I would really pay attention to it. I mean, when I was dieting, I mean, this was so long ago, but there was Atkins diet, there was
Yeah.
some weird diet called Sugar Busters. That was I think it was local. I don't know, but it would very much hijack my attention and it just gradually got less and less and less and less to where, yeah, I mean, I see these Super Bowl commercials and I just kinda roll my eyes like, yeah, it's terrible that that's the messages that's being sent out, but it doesn't affect me personally.
I remember the Atkins diet very, very clearly, and I remember the Atkins brand chocolate that
Mhm.
I convinced myself at the time I can just eat as much of this as I want. Um,
Yeah.
GI issues, anyone? Like,
Yeah, right.
oh god. It was anyone who's experienced that knows, like, it was horrendous, absolutely horrendous. I'm wondering about something else that you do personally, if you don't mind sharing, like, when it comes to which foods to keep in our house and which foods not to keep in our house, obviously, there are so many schools of thought on this, ranging from, on one end of the scale, you should cleanse your house of anything that's not protein and broccoli,
Mhm.
versus on the other end of the scale, people saying you should just put everything in your house and let the chips fall where they may. No pun intended.
Yeah.
How do you go about that? Because I often speak to clients who are struggling with those two messages and finding that both extremes don't really work for them.
Yeah, I mean, this is definitely another place that I feel fortunate. Again, not the best word that I went through that because I did learn to realize that I wasn't powerless around any food and really learn that all a food can do is create desire, but you ultimately do have the power to overcome that desire. That doesn't mean you should just put yourself in situations that feel unmanageable to you personally, right? What I'm talking about in my own life is not necessarily what I tell my clients. So yeah, I did have that experience, long ago to really learn that I can be around any food and make self-supporting choices. So I don't really think about it. I mean, I am in a situation where I do have 4 kids who don't eat the healthiest. I try my best, but there's a bunch of stuff in my house that previously, if I was a binge eater, would have been very dangerous. And sometimes it goes stale. I mean, I feel bad about that just because, financially and all that, but it just doesn't call to me like it used to.
Mm.
And I think too, because my kids have always been raised in that way to like know that these foods are not off limits, they're not forbidden. Sometimes they're not that attracted to the food either. Like they'll want it one day and the next day they're like, I don't want that anymore, and then it goes bad. So I think the lack of thinking foods are forbidden is so important to making it them not feel so tempting because yeah, I could go eat any of the things I have right now. That is full permission to do that. But once you give yourself that full permission, it gives you the sense of choice around it. And do I eat some of it? Absolutely. Do I eat nourishing foods too? Yes, absolutely. So I have a big variety. One of my podcasts, my ex-boyfriend was interviewing me and he talked about that. He was like, I was so surprised when I went to your house as an eating disorder coach of like all the junk food that was in your house. So maybe it'd be a little embarrassing. However, I do try to keep healthy food too,
Mm.
and working on my kids' eating habits to make them a little better. But I think, yeah, not having food be forbidden is super helpful. And then realizing that you do have power over any food is great. Now, what I tell my clients, I have a little rule or guideline that I say is so the brain over binge approach is all about dismissing urges to binge. That's one goal. And then eating adequately is the other goal. And I tell them, what do you need in your house to help you eat adequately, to feed your body? That's not going to make it too hard to dismiss urges. So everything you bring in your house, you can kind of take it through that lens. Is it gonna make it too hard for me to dismiss urges? Do I need it to eat adequately? And then that can evolve and change over time.
I love that so much. Set yourself up to win. Our goal is to remove fear around foods, to practice realizing that we do have autonomy, that we can make choices, and that being in a well-regulated position to make good choices starts with not being starving, starts with not being deprived. So
Mhm,
eating adequately and eating an adequate range of foods, that's where it begins, because trying to, moderate our intake of certain other foods if we're feeling deprived or if we're genuinely hungry or if we've gone long periods of time without eating, like it's just going to be unnecessarily hard.
mhm.
So there's the eating adequately piece, but also what it looks like at the start is going to change. Yeah, you might keep a few different foods in your house, but nothing that's going to make the job so much harder than it needs to be. But
Mhm,
that's not how it will always be. Like, say, for example, I used to really struggle with keeping chips and chocolate in my house. Like, that used to be really hard. So for a while, I was keeping other tasty things in my house, but maybe not those certain foods that I found just too challenging. I would practice eating them in other situations, in other ways, or if I did keep them in my house, I'd be really mindful of the portion size that I kept in my house. So I'd never be keeping enough in the house to facilitate a full binge. But then with time, it's kind of like now I can keep whatever in my house and it's fine. So
Yeah.
I love what you said about how that changes with
Mhm.
time.
Yeah, because we're talking about the food environment in this episode, and that's your immediate food environment. And you can create that for yourself to be as supportive as possible. So there's no right way. I mean, I think some clients will come with this idea that, oh, I have to be able to keep everything in my house right away or I'm failing. But you're not. You're just supporting yourself. Like you're
Mm.
saying, I love that example with the chips and the chocolate is that felt self-supportive. And it's not that you said, I can never have chips and chocolate. It's just, I'm going to have it out of the house or I'm going to bring manageable portions into the house. So making those self-supporting decisions is a great way to make your environment conducive to recovery.
And there's another question that I want to ask you as well about what you do to relax. And I know that might sound weird. So let me throw some context out there.
Okay.
I know for myself, when I was struggling with binge eating, when food was just the main thing on my radar, like all day, every day, it was really hard to relax, have some time out, maybe watch some TV or chill without feeling drawn to constant snacking. Like, I need to have a piece of food in my hand, I need to be snacking, having multiple sensory inputs happening all at the same time. I need the TV going, I need a snack in my hand. Whereas now I can relax without feeling like I need to be eating in order
Mhm.
to relax. The need for those inputs has kind of like dropped. But that was something that I could never have imagined how that would be possible when I was in that phase of relaxing with, like, a martini in one hand, a large
Mhm.
pizza in the other hand, and streaming something on Netflix. I'm wondering, like, what you do to relax now and if that looks different to maybe what it
Mhm.
used to.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think it's another way the modern environment has affected us, right? We're all taught that that's how we relax is by stimulation, right?
Yeah.
Like watching something, scrolling, eating, drinking. There's so many things, right? So I think a lot of us have lost this art of relaxing. So again, it's not to say you're broken, right? If you try to relax and you have all these urges to do things like scroll or eat, that doesn't mean you're broken. It's the result of these inputs that are all around us. So I think accepting that is important. When you try to relax, it might not feel relaxing at first because you're going to have these desires based on the environment and based on your past conditioning. I think binging or eating can get so linked to trying to relax that people will try to relax, have those urges like I talked about, and then think, oh, like I need it to relax. No, you're just out of practice relaxing without it. So for a little while, you have to accept you're going to have to relax and have urges. But over time, those urges go away and I think the mistake a lot of people make is thinking, oh, eating is the only thing that helps me relax. But really, that's only because it's the only thing that's getting rid of those urges. But if you keep going, if you keep relaxing through the urges are going to go away. And then relaxing will feel relaxing. It won't feel like you're just gritting your teeth and trying not to eat. But you asked me more personally about it. And I do think that relates to my personal story too, is because I definitely had that. I mean, my therapist would say, oh, instead of binging, just go take a bubble bath. And I'd take a bubble bath, and all I would think about was binging. And I'd be like, this is not relaxing. This is terrible. Binging is the only thing that makes me relax, but it's the only thing that made the urges go away. So I think once I saw through that, it opened me up to many types of relaxation by realizing that I would just have to practice those things, dismiss the urges to binge during those things, and then those things would eventually become relaxing. Like a bubble bath sounds amazing. Right now, I don't have time for it, but
You're like,
yeah,
"Yeah, that's
I
great. I
mean,
wish I could do that."
for sure. But I don't know. I love a small nap is wonderful. I do love tea. That's, like, one of my favorite things, and I know it's kind of food, not really, right? But that's, like, one of my favorite things is instead of going on the couch with a bag of chips, like, I love to go with, like, a warm cup of tea.
What kind of tea do you
Trying to
like?
think. So many kinds. A long time ago, coffee just stopped working for me, kinda like alcohol, like, it started making me feel terrible, so I switched to tea, and there's just so many varieties and herbal varieties, and I do black tea in the morning because I need the caffeine, but, yeah, that's a good one. I'm trying to think of other ones. Gosh, I mean, I do love, like, watching silly shows with my kids is fun. We take our dog for a walk. There's just a lot of things that are just normal that used to not feel like, "Oh, this isn't good enough," because it's not your brain was so focused on binging. It was like, "You need to binge, you need to binge," so it was so hard to do those things. Now you just do those things without the noise. And so many things can be relaxing. I love driving. I love listening to music, just random stuff.
I love how the word practice came into that. Like,
Mhm.
practice just going and relaxing, accepting that, yeah, some urges and maybe some restlessness is going to persist for a while. That doesn't mean you're doing a bad job. It doesn't mean you're not on track. It just means that changing this and doing something different, it's not going to feel blissful immediately. And it's not going to give you that same totally zoned out, switched off feeling, like that dissociated feeling that binging came with.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I love that.
That's the feeling I think people then say, "Well, binging's the only thing that gives me that."
Mm,
And that's a tough one because that is something you do need to let go.
yeah.
It is something you have to realize whatever temporary benefits, in quotes, this gives me in the moment, it's simply not worth the pain. It always has another side to it. That primitive brain and that habit will only remind you of the pleasure and really drive you toward that pleasure and say, binging's the only thing that gives me that numbed out escape feeling.
Mhm.
But there's always another side to it.
Yeah.
And it's you having to remember that anytime I do that, it makes me feel terrible on the other side. I've never met anyone who's binged who's been glad they binged on the other side. So it's kind of realizing I don't need that. And that's a hard thing to accept and to let go and to see that you really kind of only need it because that's the habit, right? That's the lower brain shop to make you feel like you need it in that moment. But when you can step back and realize that's a feeling of desire, it's not your true wants and needs, it helps you ride out that feeling and realize that, oh, I actually didn't need that zoned out feeling and it's better to be present. And also, and I'm going in a few different tangents here, there is an idea in this space that you have to just be with all your feelings and feel all your feelings. I don't necessarily think that either. If you want to zone out and scroll on TikTok or whatever, or zone out with a TV show, it's not like you have to just sit there and feel your feelings
Yeah.
or binge. You can zone out in other ways. You just, when you're zoning out in this way that's harming you and hurting you, right? If it was truly just a benefit without a consequence, you would not be here listening to this podcast. So it's finding ways, if you truly want to zone out, finding ways to do that without harming yourself.
I think that's such an important perspective that it's not about just refusing all distractions and sitting there staring at the wall like a psychopath. Like we
Yeah.
that's not what we're saying, like, at all. I had kind of a problematic relationship with video games for a while after recovery because I was using video games as a distraction, as a way to get through some of the, the difficult territory, the food noise, the, constant thoughts, the discomfort. And I started doing that when I was single, right? So I took my initial steps of recovery when I was single, and then I met my wife, and very quickly after we moved in together after a while. So while we were dating, and it wasn't really obvious that I was leaning on video games in this way because, like, we were still living separately, all that stuff. But then when we moved in together and the relationship became more serious, she was feeling quite, like, abandoned because I
Mhm.
would disappear into myself, into a video game, and just be completely dissociated, completely disconnected, non-communicative, just because I was accustomed to having something that could switch all my emotions and thoughts off with the, like, touch of a button, whether it be binge eating, which then became playing video games, which was slightly better. It was a step in the right direction,
Mhm.
but it started to have some negative consequences in terms of my relational health. So then it's like I had to address that. And it's not like I never play video games or like I never watch TV anymore, but the relationship with those things has to change. And I think I would, I just want to, like, recognize what you said about how, like, we're not saying you need to be totally undistracted. You
Yeah.
can do other things, but the thing itself is never really the problem. It's how we're leaning on the thing or how we're engaging with the thing. Like with
Mhm.
making food choices that are kind of emotional food choices, for example, it's not wrong to make emotional food choices sometimes. Like it's kind of
Yeah.
human. And if we beat ourselves up and say that, oh, I failed every time we make an emotional food choice, that's not actually going to help get rid of the food noise and create that sense of confidence and peace. But at the same time, if food is the only tool we have, the only thing that we go to in response to difficult feelings, or, we are reflexively reaching for food when we feel tired or stressed or sad, rather than having other kind of coping strategies that we might go to first, then yeah, food is going to be a problem in that context. But we're definitely not saying you need to just stare at the wall and not have any distractions. But
Yeah.
it it can take a few different versions of different steps to find your way to, like you said, being able to relax, going for a walk with the dog, or like just sitting down and having a cup of tea. Like I love listening to audiobooks now. Like I will just lay on the couch for a moment listening to an audiobook with no other stimulus going, and that's fine. It
Yeah.
didn't used to be, but it's fine now.
Yeah. Yeah. So if you're out there thinking, I'll never be like that, just understand that we thought that too at one point, and it's just getting that practice and supporting yourself. And I also liked how you brought up the emotional eating piece. Like, recovery doesn't mean you'll never eat emotionally again. And also, resting and learning other ways to rest doesn't mean that eating can never be a part of that. Eating
Mm.
can be a relaxing thing, right? If you're fully choosing it, if it feels aligned with you. I'm saying I like to go have tea and watch a show or whatever. Sometimes there is a snack involved in that. And I'll say that it's not that you never can do that. It's like what you said, that it becomes one part of what you do. It becomes one way you can relax or have some pleasure and enjoyment. It doesn't become the only thing, and it doesn't feel impulsive. It feels more chosen.
Like an actual decision. Like of the
Hmm.
things that I could potentially choose today I'm choosing the tea with a nice biscuit. Like
Hmm.
that's the thing that I'm choosing today, and it's not like "Oh, good God, I need this."
Yeah, exactly. That's
Yeah.
a great way to reframe that.
But bringing it back to the food environment, I guess, like, it is crazy right now. Like, there's nothing that can be said that I feel is really accurate other than, yeah, it's mental. Like,
Hmm.
we're in a really difficult situation. What we're being asked to regulate through and navigate on a daily basis, it's just hard.
Hmm.
And I guess I'd want anyone to know that beating yourself up about it and piling on layers of self-criticism and self-hatred and self-judgment and all that kind of stuff on top of how difficult it already is isn't helpful. It's going to wear you down even more. So
Hmm.
I would say, like, yeah, the environment is really hard, but don't add unnecessary hard voluntarily on top of that.
Hmm.
What do you think, Catherine?
Yeah, I mean, I love what you just said, right? Because that's adding another layer when you start criticizing yourself. I'm doing a food noise podcast series right now, and my last episode was about the food environment, and my main message was, don't let the food environment make you feel like you're broken, but also don't let it make you feel like you're powerless. So what you're speaking to is the broken piece, right? You're not broken. It's hard. Acknowledge that you're not alone in this. But then also don't let it make you feel like you're powerless, because having these messages and all these inputs and these things going on, it truly doesn't have to affect your choices. And getting back to the word practice, you can learn to practice connecting with what you truly want, determining what you truly want and need in terms of food, in terms of nourishing yourself, in terms of what works for your own life, and then kind of tuning out that noise. And it's not easy and it's a practice. And there may be times when you feel more hijacked by it than others, but just keep bringing it back to what do I want? What works for me and my family in my immediate environment? We talked about that as far as creating a self supporting environment in your own home. And when you see the noise, when you see the commercials, bring it back. What do I want? What works for me? And kind of staying in your lane in that way. And I know it's maybe a little overly simplified, but I do think it's possible. I don't think we have to be at the mercy of all this noise.
And one last question. I definitely noticed in my own journey that there were certain foods that I used to really put on a pedestal. And I know that my experience of those foods definitely changed when I was properly nourished, eating a wide range of foods on a regular basis, felt less like any one food is going to ruin the day, was more able to practice having a bit of something with one meal, recognizing maybe the urge to keep eating past the point where I was going to feel good about it, and regulating through that discomfort and being like, it's okay, it's fine.
Hmm.
I can stop here. I can have more at my next meal if I want to. That's totally cool. But having more now is going to mess me up. So let's put a pin in it, take my attention somewhere else, have more at the next meal if I want to. There were certain foods, like I said, that I used to put on real pedestals that when I tried to eat them again, I was like, ugh, this is nowhere near as good as I
Yeah.
remember. Like, I used to get these different flavors of ice cream that had what I can only describe as a lot of stuff in it. Like, just
Hmm.
like more and more when I try those things now, I almost feel like bleh. Like I
Hmm.
don't want it. Like my taste buds have changed, my palate has changed. The foods that I look forward to have genuinely changed. Uh, did you notice anything like that for yourself? Did your tastes and preferences change the further
Oh,
away
yeah.
you got from binge eating?
Oh, yeah, for sure. Absolutely. I mean, my biggest binge food back in the day was cereal. That was something that I started binging on. It really called to me all the time. And now, I mean, we have boxes of cereal here for my kids, and it's not that I'm trying not to eat them. I just don't want them. They don't make me feel that great. It's like, ugh. Sometimes a good bowl of cereal is great. Don't get me
Mhm.
wrong, but not often. I did write a blog post about cereal, that whole journey because it's was so interesting to me, and I do think a lot of it had to do with being nourished, like you said. When you are fed, it changes it really changes everything. Not right away. I think people will think,
Yeah.
"Oh, I've eaten normally for 3 days. I shouldn't feel like this anymore." That's why it's always that combination of eating adequately, eating enough, and dismissing urges or regulating through them like you talked about, because eating enough is not gonna shift things right away. There
Mhm.
was some research I included in my book that it can take hunger and fullness hormones about a year to regulate after a diet and after restriction. I'm sure there's other studies out there too, but it does take a long time for your body to get that message that you are fed. So don't expect eating enough to take care of the urges right away. People will think they're broken in that way. You're not broken. Just being consistent, eating enough, dismissing urges, eating enough, dismissing urges, and it does shift. It really does. I remember, having a box of cereal for the first time in my house and kind of forgetting about it. Like, what's that? It's like your brain stops prioritizing it. It stops making it feel, like you said, on a pedestal. And part of that too is not forbidding it, because yeah, it was something that I would tell myself, you just can't have this because you're addicted to it. And then it becomes more appealing.
Mm.
So I know everyone is different in their experience of this. And also, I know you've talked about food noise in your podcast too, is that eating enough, dismissing urges, even for some people over time, some foods still have that appeal to them. And there might be some other work they need to do around it. Or some people do find that just staying away from certain foods is ultimately better for them and more helpful for them. So everyone does have a different experience. In my own personal experience, it has been more helpful to allow these things and eat these things. And that has made them lose their appeal over time.
Mhm.
But yeah, I mean, hopefully that helps explain my own experience with that.
Cool. Thank you. Yeah. Cereal was I remember one day in high school, I got this box of, I got this. I say that like I used to do my own shopping in high school. No, my mum. My m my mum
Yeah.
did our shopping and brought home this apple cinnamon flavored Special K,
Mhm.
and I started eating it because at the time I was on the craziest version of my strictest diets that I was ever on when I was a teenager. And I ate some because it was like whole wheat this and bran that and
Mhm.
whatever. And the moment I started eating it, it was so far removed from the taste of all the other things that I was eating, like just the meat and vegetables and whatever, that I found it so overstimulating, like the taste, the texture, everything about it, the sweetness, that I ate the whole box, like, straight away, and I remember getting to school and then being told that that was, like, fitness testing day, and we had to do, like, laps
Oh,
of
no.
the oval and everything, and I was there just I felt so sick, but, yeah, with the importance of including different foods and staying well nourished, that experience, I remember just it it was so different to what the other foods that I would regularly eat were, that it hit
Mhm.
me like a train and I couldn't regulate my experience. I couldn't regulate how much I was eating. But now we literally have, you've reminded me, I've got some boxes of cereal in the cupboard that I need to throw out because they've been there since I think 2021.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah,
Yeah.
these things do change, but I really appreciate what you said about how it's not going to take just like 3 days of regular meals and a bit of variety and some urge surfing.
Yeah.
Like it's we need reps, we need time, we need consistency plus time. So
Yeah.
if you do find yourself struggling after a couple of weeks and you're like, what the hell? I feel like I've been making a real effort with this for a few weeks now, like even a month, and it's just like I still feel like it's hard. The most realistic kind of response to that I can give right now is like, yeah, yeah, it takes some time
Mhm.
and you can do it. Like you can.
Yeah.
So I'm
Yeah.
wondering, are there any kind of final messages you'd like to leave everyone with today?
I always like to remind people that it is definitely an individual journey. Like we talk about these foods and our choices with them, and everyone needs to make different choices with these foods. That's a big part of the modern food environment too. Is there's a lot of messages that, oh, this is addictive and you should never eat this, and a lot of forbidding food messages out in the world. And that can be really hard to navigate through too, because on the one hand, you have people like us saying you can learn to eat these foods in moderation, they can lose their power over you. And then on the other hand, you have people saying you're powerless, you can't eat these foods, they're addictive, they're evil. And that's hard too. And I
Mm.
think for some people, or for most people, there's a middle ground where you can see that, yes, some foods do make it more challenging for sure. Most of the time, you can learn, you can get through it, the foods can lose their power over you. But if for certain people, I do find there are certain foods that maybe they'd do better off without. And that's not necessarily a powerless thing. It's just I don't think it's a powerless thing. It is this simply makes it too challenging for me, or this simply makes it too challenging for me right now. And that's okay. I don't think you're doing something wrong if you're not completely intuitively eating or like allowing yourself everything. It's okay if you need to put aside certain foods. And like we talked about, that can evolve and change over time. And you'll just keep supporting yourself through this journey. Keep asking yourself what you need. Keep staying in your own lane, not letting all these outside messages influence what you truly feel like is best for you.
Thank you so much for joining us today, Catherine. It's been really good catching up with you.
Thank you so much, Marcus.
And I'll make sure that there are links to where people can find you in the episode description.
Okay, awesome. I really appreciate you having me today.
Cool. Be in touch.
Awesome.